Hey, this is Michael Lindsay. We're out here at Hurricane, Utah next to St. George. Beautiful state park, great opportunity to test out the brand new Honda Talon 1000R and 1000X, their first foray into the sports side-by-side market. So first up, I'm going to talk about the main difference between driving the 1000X and the 1000R, and this is what really even had myself curious coming into it, because from the bare bones of these two vehicles, they're almost exactly the same except for the suspension components. That's really just the mounting points, the design of the suspension system in the rear end, the length of the travel, the width of the system. That's all that's different. The brake systems, the tires, wheels at the end are the same, and everything really in the main form of the chassis, engine, mapping, all it's the same. So it really just comes down to the driving characteristics affected by the suspension. The Talon 1000X is the shorter travel, narrower width of the two. And honestly, of the two, it was the one that impressed me the most with the conditions we were driving in today. Here at Sand Hollow, we're near a lake. We've got really neat red sand to play in, a lot of rock ledges, kind of a slick rock to drive in. So playing around sand, you've got some open desert, some more hard pack whoops, some really soft sandy whoops. And the sand is really wet from the rain. So it's really rough. The sand is packing in, it's getting really choppy. And the X, for the majority of speeds, really, to me, is the most well-balanced of the two. And it's honestly, I'm sure people always want bigger and better on suspension, but I think a lot of people would enjoy the X overall. Biggest reason is it's a little more precise feeling than the R on steering inputs. It's just a little bit more of a nimbler package, and everything you do, the car just feels more playful, basically, from the inputs you put in. And I mean, both vehicles to me are a better overall or more intuitive experience I've had in any other side-by-side. Coming from a motocross background, I want to shift, I want to rev things, I want to be able to use the input and the knowledge I have to affect the car different. And really with the DCT, the 6-speed, the different shift modes, it's fun in the manual just to short shift and get to lay back into the torque and meat of the power and squat down and track. And honestly, unless you get to the absolute highest of speeds, it can handle most of the softer style rolling whoops and more sharp edge hits here almost as good as the R, while, like I said, offering to me a little bit more of a playful package, something that fits in some of the two-track trails a lot easier. You're not as worried about catching the rocks, catching the bushes on the side, where the 1000R, I didn't always feel like I could drive it to the most of its abilities in those sections, because you're just worried a little more about the width, you're catching stuff. Really the only place today that the 1000R outshines, and it would be my recommendation for somebody, is if you've got the really open conditions to play with it. The suspension on it, other than the width of it, is definitely a little bit stiffer. Even softening up to the softer the 3 clicker settings for front and rear, you have to be able to, at some pretty high speeds and some pretty deep rollers, to get to use all that stroke and travel. If you're more of a West Coast guy, you're more in the hard packed desert, definitely the R stands out. But honestly, like maybe a glam as a dunes guy, definitely the East Coast terrain, I really recommend the X over it. I think most people would have more of an enjoyable experience in it. Either way though, as I said, both of them are a more intuitive experience than I've ever had in any other side-by-side. And really, I think what Honda has done is something that's really similar to their motocross line. There's little aspects about the cars I could complain about, little things on controls, little things like that. For a first-time product though, it's so well-rounded. The throttle response is amazing. As a naturally aspirated for the class it fits into, it's right up there with the best of them. The chassis is phenomenal. It's well poised, it's well balanced out of the box, and it just really nails it for a first-year product. Like I said, I'm not a side-by-side guy by trade, but coming from the moto world, this is by far the most rewarding experience I've ever had in a side-by-side, and I think they really, really hit it out of the park.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit subscribe. We have plenty more content from the off-road and motorcycle industry. And if you need something for your side-by-side, go to shapmoto.com, throw in the code ML512 at checkout to save yourself a few dollars.